We've seen the elite level that disabled athletes can reach, the stakes, the rewards to be reaped, and also these athletes by their very nature have unique medical concerns. Put those two factors together and it's not a surprise that drug testing is a hot-button issue in the disabled sports community. Doping rules, which some athletes and coaches say are unrealistically harsh. David Kiley was a gold medalist. The U.S. team swept the field at the 1992 Paralympics in Barcelona. But within hours, a random drug test turned up traces of a banned painkiller, Darvon, in Kiley's urine. The sport's governing body took action not only against Kiley, but all of his teammates, stripping their medals and the Paralympic championship.
We must fight the use and misuse of drugs at any and all possible costs.
Now, if he doesn't come with me, if he wants to stay back there, then I do what we did earlier this morning. I come around here and get the shot, okay?
Kiley, like many with his type of spinal cord injuries, suffers frequent shooting pains in his legs. But disabled athletes are forced to compete under the same banned substance list as able-bodied competitors. And the painkiller Kiley took 2 nights before the championship game is on that list.
Able-bodied or disabled athletes, when you're in the very elite level, will do as much as they can to win. And there have been surveys that showed, surveys of high-quality athletes, that if they could take something that would shorten their life but guarantee them a gold medal, they would take it.
The amount that they found in his system was no way going to be performance enhancing at all. So it's not like he took anything to really enhance his performance. It's not like he took something so that we could have a better chance to win that medal.
It doesn't have to be performance enhancing. If it's a painkiller, it's performance enabling. I mean, if you don't take a painkiller, maybe you can't compete as easily as you could if you have taken it.
And I'm saying all along this is not right. You know, that the penalty is far too stiff for taking a drug unknowingly that was not performance enhancing, that was taken unknowingly and without any intent to cheat. And I felt as though I was being punished like I had taken a steroid or I was on cocaine or something that would elevate my heart rate or make me perform better. And none of that was what I felt had happened.
Kiley and the U.S. team had to wait 6 months for a hearing. The board simply reaffirmed Kiley's test had been positive. 2 years later, the team is still waiting for an appeal.
So we have a situation where the IPC has been virtually draconian in its imposition of that kind of a penalty on the U.S.
Not that rules aren't rules and not that we didn't possibly break a rule, but given the nature of the infraction and the small amount that was in his system and the fact that it wasn't a steroid or anything, it was just a painkiller, I still have this hope and this feeling that I'm going to get my gold medal back.
David Kiley's mistake cost his team the gold medal. John Sikora never got to play for a medal. While trying out for the 1994 team, Sikora learned his hypertension medication was on the banned list. He tried to change medicine, but severe side effects followed. Sikora had to give up his dream of making the team.
You have to know what your priorities are in terms of your personal life and family life and professional life.
Sikora must take a diuretic and beta blockers to maintain his health. And while those drugs might be performance enhancing for a wrestler or shooter, they're not an advantage for a basketball player.
Over the course of a 20-year period of taking the medication, I didn't think that in any way the medication I was on was a performance enhancer.
The issue becomes this: should doping rules for able-bodied athletes be applied to disabled competitors, or should the list be sport-specific to allow for the special needs of these athletes? The issue divides the community.
I think we have a lot of situations where we're not the same and where we can't ever be the same as our able-bodied counterparts. And if we want to get right down to it, if we were so alike, we wouldn't be in the Paralympics to begin with. We'd be in the Olympics.
But a teammate of Kiley's is concerned about any special considerations for disabled athletes.
We've been trying so hard to get acceptance as elite athletes, you know, and trying to conform to IOC rules and stuff like that, and bring ourselves closer and closer to just able-bodied athlete standards for so long, that we can't do that and at the same time go, can we do this except, you know, the drug thing? We can't just say that.
We just don't adopt the International Olympic Committee or the International Federation rules and regulations. We constantly review the list of banned drugs that come out from the IOC and as well from the different international federations.
In fact, the IOC list is identical to the Paralympic list.
There should be an entirely different list. There should be different methods established that would authorize the use of certain medications and would apply.
It needs a fresh look by the International Paralympic Committee. It needs a lot of work. It might cost a lot of money, but we shouldn't just go and buy a system off the shelf.
John Sikora and David Kiley want to play at the highest level to celebrate their skill and courage, but with rules which they feel are realistic and reasonable.
The competitive drive has been there for years, and it's been a dream of mine always to be on the U.S. national teams and to compete against and with and against the elite players from around the world. And you finally make it to that status, and it's like somebody pulling the rug out from underneath.
Critics say most colleges practice systematic exclusion. That story, when Outside the Lines, continues.
Their reality against the new legal mandate that schools be reasonable. And some don't like what they see. Bob Serkin reports on this debate.
Step up, defense!
Ball!
Kill him! Good pressure, good pressure.
21-year-old Brian Weedling, a hard-charging heads-up forward for the Emerson College varsity soccer team in Boston. Playing the game, something he's done since age 4, has been part of Weedling's recovery since a car wreck cost him his lower left leg.
I'm a soccer player, and you know, I don't have all the same skills that I used to have. I don't, you know, have all the same motor function that I used to have, but you know, still I'm a soccer player.
Joyce Luncher swims for the women's varsity team at Catholic University in Washington, D.C. Getting her shortened right arm to reach the wall at the same time as her left cost her precious milliseconds.
I have seen other people from other teams, you know, kind of look at me and say, oh, you know, look at her, you know, she's not going to beat me, you know, no problem, I got this one bagged, you know, and then when I come across and beat them or to give them a run for their money, you know, they get out and you know, look at whoever they were talking to and say, you know, I better watch out for this girl.
No one has challenged Joyce's right to swim or Brian's right to score, and to do so would be illegal. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, or the ADA, requires schools to make their athletic programs open to all students, stating individuals with disabilities must be provided an equally effective opportunity. For some college athletes, that equally effective opportunity exists.
Come on, Dan.
Dan Kelly, a blind swimmer who captained his high school varsity team in Minnesota, will begin his collegiate career this fall. Tim Willis, blind since age 7, ran varsity track for 4 years at Georgia Southern. Now a world-class runner in disabled competition, Willis is training full-time for the Atlanta Paralympics. While a select few disabled athletes can compete with and against able-bodied athletes, a greater segment feels it's been systematically excluded.
The colleges and universities themselves need to recognize that there is a population on their campuses that represents the only population that is denied categorically access to varsity sports, and those are students with disabilities.
Ryan Martin, an accomplished wheelchair tennis player, left the University of Miami in disgust 2 years ago when it refused to give him an athletic scholarship. This memo outlined the university's decision. To provide a scholarship for Mr. Martin would mean we would have to go without a student athlete in the sport of tennis. Roger Miller, a point guard for the Temple University Rolling Owls, says he too has been made to feel he's not really an athlete.
I want them to consider us athletes and not just a bunch of disabled guys pushing up and down or making recreation. I'm an athlete. I train just as hard as Temple varsity men's team does. You got it, and I'm in the classroom just as hard as they're studying, and I consider this a sport.
Wheelchair basketball has provided the greatest opportunity for disabled college athletes, but those who play and coach the sport complain about its second-rate status.
The organization simply is saying you're not legitimate as a varsity program. These are not legitimate athletes, and subsequently you should be less rigorously recognized.
For 20 years, the Central Intercollegiate Wheelchair Basketball Conference has been fighting for NCAA recognition, fighting for the NCAA to sanction a championship event.
The response to their queries along those lines was that, well, the number of schools is small and you appear to be far more consistent with club sports and intramurals, and therefore you should affiliate with the National Intramural Sport and Recreation Association. There's far too much inertia taking them in other directions and problems of greater magnitude than serving 2 to 4% of the students with an accommodative program.
What do you think it's going to take to jar them?
Lawsuits, sometimes. Sometimes the only time a person will wake up is if they're sued over something.
The NCAA regulates and supervises athletics at 906 colleges and universities, at which 270,000 athletes compete in 21 sports. 1 out of every 10 American college students is disabled. But for the disabled athlete, there remains no NCAA recognition. That translates into no support, virtually no scholarship money, and no championship ring.
I think those numbers are very compelling, and our member institutions should be responding to the needs of all of their students.
Why aren't you responding, though?
In what way does are you suggesting the NCAA respond? The point is, our member institutions are the NCAA, and they are responding. Some are responding more slowly than others.
Historically, the NCAA has never hesitated to crack down on its members when its image is at stake. But in the case of disabled athletes and charges of indifference toward them, the NCAA hands off to its members.
Does the NCAA want a lawsuit filed here?
Of course not. I think, litigation to try to affect this is not a very positive thing. But if in fact that's what happens, to determine whether or not the law requires this, what are the parameters of the law? What is the relationship between an NCAA championship and opportunity at the institutional level? If those questions need to be clarified by the courts, that may in fact have to happen.
It may well take a court of law to settle the disputes, as both sides predict a fight similar to the one waged over the rights of women athletes. Some, however, argue there are solutions without litigation.
They can have categories for disabled individuals in, for instance, track events. Right now you have a category, a heat for women, a heat for men. Have heats for disabled individuals. That's all. It's a very simple thing.
On many of our Division I campuses, you're looking at anywhere from $10 to $20 million in an athletic budget. And if we're talking about a population of 2 or 3%, then 2 or 3% of a budget like that would be enough money to do a tremendous job in adapted sport, and yet it would be a very small element in their budget line.
Meanwhile, the University of Texas at Arlington is one school whose commitment to the disabled is a proven winner. The Movin' Mavs have won 4 straight wheelchair basketball championships, not by luck, but because the school provides its wheelchair team with scholarships, support, and full equity within its athletic department. But most disabled college athletes remain on the sidelines, waiting for equal rights and another legal challenge that may someday put them in the game.
Next, how Jim Abbott's success has inspired the next generation of disabled athletes.
Anytime that you can maybe take away those limitations, it's a very, very good thing. And I just want kids to have the same opportunities that I have.
Promote dream unless you have a real-life hero, a role model in the truest sense of that word. Brett Haber with the story.
Jim Abbott of the New York Yankees doesn't want to be a symbol of anything except excellence.
Swing and a miss, he got him.
But Jim Abbott is a symbol and an inspiration. He struggled this season, his second in New York, But 3 years ago, he finished third in the balloting for the American League Cy Young Award. Last season, Abbott pitched the Yankees' first no-hitter in a decade.
He did it! He did it!
He became a winning pitcher in the major leagues at the age of 21, with no minor league experience and no right hand.
I don't feel like I've ever been limited, really, from anything I wanted to do. And no, I don't think I'm any more different than anybody else. You know, I've always said that.
Basically how I hold the glove and take the glove off.
But Abbott is distinguished by his level of compassion. He gives his time generously to the children who admire him, meeting dozens every year. Usually, he doesn't permit photographers or reporters to be present during those meetings. He doesn't want the publicity for himself, and he doesn't want the pressure on the children.
It's a thrill for me. It really is. You know, somebody said that charity is the most selfish thing, and I don't know who, Bill Russell or somebody like that. I agree with that sometimes. Sometimes the things you take away, you know, you're very, very happy, and that's the most important thing.
Here in upstate New York, Jim Abbott has got plenty of fans. We're about 3.5 hours out of New York City, so this is still very much Yankees country. But here in Yorkville, New York, there is one little leaguer in particular whose passion for the Yankees, and for Jim Abbott especially, is by all accounts unsurpassed.
I like this one the best.
Josh Poirier's room is a tribute to Jim Abbott. Abbott autographed balls, Abbott trading cards, and assorted other Abbott memorabilia are just about everywhere. Like Jim Abbott, Josh has been given a strong left arm and some athletic ability, too. Also, like Jim Abbott, Josh has an impaired right arm. Josh is 10 years old and plays in Yorkville's Little League. His first interest in baseball dates back to his very first memory of seeing Jim Abbott pitch.
He was very young then. He was probably only 3 years old, and I told him, there's a guy that doesn't have a right hand at all, and he's an excellent ball player. So he was interested from that time on. We just kind of followed Jim after that.
I started watching baseball, and I saw him pitch one day when I was about 3 or 4, and I just sort of followed him and learned to pitch like him, take off the glove and put it back on really fast.
Almost since he first learned to walk, Josh has been encouraged to do everything the other kids do. His parents say growing up in the Abbott era, Josh didn't encounter any barriers to his athletic pursuits.
We told him there isn't anything that he can't do, you know, and we never really even used the word disability or handicapped, you know, with him. Because, like I said, he can do anything. It might take him a little bit longer, might be a little bit harder than some other people, but, you know, he can do it.
No matter what you tell him, there's no negative at all. He's just a kid that you want to have on your team.
A pitcher and a first baseman, Josh was selected to 3 local all-star teams this summer alone. Clearly, by his example, Abbott has created new hope for youngsters like Josh. Last year, one of Josh's teachers wrote to Jim Abbott asking if Josh could meet the player at Yankee Stadium. Abbott, as usual, said yes.
What did he say to you when you saw him?
He said, try your best, and if you make a bad play, just forget about it and just keep going on.
Did he talk about the arm?
No, not really.
Didn't even make any mention of it? Kind of knew that you understood?
Mm-hmm.
Josh went home from Yankee Stadium with even more Abbott memorabilia and an indelible memory of meeting his hero.
Anytime that you can maybe take away those limitations, you know, is a very, very good thing, and I just want kids to have the same opportunities that I had.
Because of Jim Abbott, they can also have the same dreams.
What do you want to be? What do you want to do when you grow up?
Play baseball.
Is there anything that can stop you from doing that?
No. Not that I know of.
The future for disabled athletes when Triumph of the Spirit continues.
Go! Yes, yes, yes! That is excellent, excellent running.
It should be as varied as the stories that we've brought you in this hour. A future with chapters evoking the remarkable spirit these athletes bring to every challenge.
Let's go. Start jogging.
You don't tease somebody just because they're in a wheelchair or they have glasses. You don't, you know, It's because they have glasses, you don't call them 4 eyes or something like that, you know. That's one of my goals, to make a camp where everybody gets along, so then the world can finally have peace.
Disabled athletes, on one level, exemplify sport in its purest form. Yet the challenges for these youngsters and their older counterparts, the challenges into the future, are profound.
When I get older, I would want to be a Major League Baseball player because it's my favorite sport.
Mentally challenged officials may work events at next year's International Special Olympics. But for some, there's an even greater goal.
I like to officiate in the community, you know, do high school games and college games and maybe become full-time referee so I can get paid.
Disabled athletes push not only the bounds of their training and will, but the limits of science. The advances in prosthetic equipment have been remarkable. So much so that a well-trained and focused para-athlete with state-of-the-art equipment might shortly shock the world.
I think it's right around the corner. I think the technology is going to overpass the able-bodied guy.
Is it possible? I don't know, you know? What if Carl lost his leg? Carl Lewis. Stick him on a flex foot, a couple of flex feet, and maybe he'd be doing 8-7s.
The burgeoning opportunities for disabled athletes are double-edged. More competition drives the results to a higher level, but each athlete faces a reality.
It's expensive. The big races are in Australia and in Boston and Atlanta and Washington, and to get to all those, it's very expensive. So without some kind of corporate sponsorship, it's difficult to do.
Dave Lindsay competes full-time now, having taken a leave of absence from his job as a paramedic. It is a roll of the dice.
I'd like to get to a point where I can make a living out of being out on the circuit and get the sponsorships and different things to be able to afford to stay out there.
John Sikora is wondering as well, wondering if the International Paralympic Committee will change its banned drug list. In the meantime, his international basketball career is in limbo.
We all dream about playing in the Olympic Games. 1996 is just around the corner, and you lead yourself to training and to peaking at the right times, and now it's not just continuing to train and peak, but okay, what's going to happen as far as the medication? Am I going to be a candidate or not?
The modern Olympics is over 100 years old. How old is the Paralympics? We're still in an embryonic stage. Let's work on bringing it to a level and highlighting those athletes as world-class athletes the same way you would Carl Lewis and everyone else, so these kids have someone that they can look up to and realize that someday, if they train hard enough, maybe, just maybe, they can compete. Excellent.
Hey, dude, go water.
Photo game.
Oh.
Most of the dives that I do are called drift dives. In other words, I'm just sitting there just like this, just watching the reef go back and forth. When you go down, I got this below. Right and left. It's been 4 months since I've been in the water too. We have that other lid. This guy's lid out. Nice. That's nice.
John had the old...
So they have their divisions that they play.
But it's cool because they're out playing in power chairs, they're playing in everyday chairs, and what they lack in mobility, they make up for in stroke. And it's pretty neat to see power chairs out there.
Are there specially designed chairs you have to play tennis with?
So, of course, we promote and lean forward, it's going to tip forward. This chair with its wheel out in front, there's no way it's going to tip forward. Now, you might get it to go like this, but you really got to be out there after it. So we're going to show you a little bit of how we hit.
Stuck on, oh, there we go, stand by.
Is that how you move down the court?
What's that?
Let him hit it back over this side.
There's a guy in Conway, South Carolina that's really into tennis. His name's Homer Cole.
Personally, you do too much. Yes, you know, work, kind of work.
I don't throw them that high. A lot of people, when you reach back, go back. You always want to throw it up in front of you, okay? And not right into the middle.